Okay, today I am reviewing Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. This is the first Christie novel to feature her other famous detective, the amateur spinster detective, Miss Jane Marple. This is a great book. It's your small sort of English village type mystery. The plot is very clever, and the characters are very interesting. And one of the things that Christie does is she sets up Miss Marple right away as just one of the characters. She doesn't even really stand out right away. If I hadn't read other Miss Marple novels or known anything about her, I would have gone into this just thinking she was one of the busybodies of there are like 4 women in this village of St. Mary Mead who seem to know everything that's going on. They're always out in their gardens. They're always listening into other conversations. They're always commenting. And Miss Marple's one of these. But she happens to be the most clever of them. The narration of this book, it's another first-person narration. This time it is narrated by the vicar, Leonard Clement. And I think this, of the books I've read so far, chronologically, this is her strongest narrative, I think. Maybe with the possible exception of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, where Dr. Shepard is narrating. In this one, Leonard Clement gives us this kind of picture of what it's like to be an Anglican vicar in a small village, and you get to see a little bit of, well, quite a bit of humor actually in how he deals with the people in his parish. He's a bit of a he's created a bit of scandal because he's this middle-aged minister, and he's married a woman of 25, Griselda, and she's everything a pastor's wife shouldn't be. According to most of the people in the village. She's young, she's beautiful, she's a kind of really playful and fun. She talks about how she hates missionaries, so she's just completely inappropriate. And she's a horrible housewife. She has this maid named Mary who she can't train, and actually she won't train her to be good because she's afraid that the minute she trains Mary to be good, Mary will leave and they'll be stuck in the same place without a maid. So they put up with horrible food, a house that doesn't get cleaned. So it's a very, very interesting setup, and Leonard Clement describes this with a lot of humor, and it's just a very enjoyable read on that level. Now, Miss Marple differs quite a bit in her approach to solving crime from Hercule Poirot. Poirot utilizes his little gray cells, and everything to him is like a little puzzle. With Miss Marple, it's a great deal of intuition, but what she really calls it is a very highly developed ability to observe and make parallels in the ways that people behave. So she's observed human nature her whole life in this small village, and she sees this village as kind of a microcosm for the world at large. And she's very cynical about people. She doesn't trust anybody. And she, when she looks at people, she doesn't see very many differences. She looks at people in patterns. So the way a church organist behaves sometime early in her life might remind her of someone's behavior. And by that prior behavior, she's able to anticipate how this person might behave or how they may have behaved. And like Poirot, she generally solves the mystery early on, and but just doesn't reveal it because she doesn't have any proof, for one thing, and also she's having to figure out and put things into a logical order. There's a great explanation as she's talking to Griselda, and I'm going to read it to you. They're sitting together. Griselda doesn't really like Miss Marple very much because Miss Marple is a busybody and always up in her business. And here's the quote. "We've been discussing all sorts of possibilities," said Griselda. "I wish you'd solve the case, Miss Marple, like you did the way Miss Weatherby's gill of pickled shrimps disappeared, and all because it reminded you of something quite different about a sack of coals." "You're laughing at me, my dear," said Miss Marple, "but after all, that is a very sound way of arriving at the truth. It's really what people call intuition and make such a fuss about. Intuition is like reading a word without having to spell it. A child can't do that because it has so little experience. But a grown-up person knows the word because they've seen it before. You catch my meaning, Vicar? Yes, I said slowly, I think I do. You mean that if a thing reminds you of something else, well, it's probably the same kind of thing. Exactly. And so that, in a nutshell, just gives you an idea of Miss Marple's approach. We also get introduced to her nephew, Raymond West, who's going to figure into a number of other Christie Marple novels. And he's this young writer. He's very kind of a city snob, living in London, very indulgent to his aunt. And he always looks at things from this sort of idea of modern psychology. And one of the comments that Marple makes about him at the end is she refers to something that her aunt said to her once, and she said, the young people think the old people are fools, but the old people know the young people are fools. So she's very cynical about people, even though she has this exterior of sweetness. I discovered some interesting parallels in this between couples, actually. First of all, you have Leonard Clement and his wife Griselda, an older minister, and his young wife. Then you have Colonel Prothero, who is the murder victim in this story, and his young wife, Anne Prothero. And both Anne and Griselda have this connection with this young artist named Lawrence Redding. Is it an illicit connection? You'll have to read it to find out. And then we also have this man who is he's an archaeologist, and he's got a young assistant with him. So we see these juxtapositions of older men and younger women. We also have a connection between Dr. Haydock and this mysterious woman who's come into town, Miss Lestrange. And so really it's very interesting to me to see Christie exploring this in multiplicity in this story. The way that relationships work, and by far the most successful of these relationships is the relationship between Leonard Clement and his wife Griselda. Even though she's young and just ebullient and just full of life, she's and Leonard trusts her. He doesn't worry about her. He's a very boring, sort of conventional person, and I think that difference really makes them work, and it makes them kind of an interesting couple. I'm not really sure what she's exploring in this, except maybe she's thinking about. Maybe Christie herself is thinking about her second marriage. I think around this time she was married to Max Mallowan, her second husband, and he was a great deal younger than she was. So maybe, in a way, she's exploring what it's like as Leonard, what it's like for a man to be the older party in a marriage. So very, very interesting. We also have mentions of archaeology, which was her second husband's profession. A lot of interesting clues, a lot of things dependent on time in this story. It's just an excellent read, and I give it a 5 out of 5, no hesitation. Next book is The Mysterious Mr. Quinn, a collection of short stories about a mysterious character who kind of looks like Harlequin from the Commedia dell'arte.